How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about a new show. This is Paper Girls Season 1. This came out on Amazon Prime Video on July 29th, 2022, and was created by Stephany Folsom. This stars Camryn Jones, Lai Nelet, Sofia, Rosinsky, and Fina. Sorry if I mispronounced any of those names. This is based on an Image comic written by Brian K. Vaughn with art by Cliff Chiang, both of whom would become producers of this show, so that's always great to see. And overall, this was a really fun show. I mean, it's a time travel show, and that's always really fun. A good amount of character study, a good amount of humor, and, you know, cool sci-fi action. And overall, I was really pleasantly surprised with this show. I actually read a fair bit of the comic back when it first came out, so I was really interested to see what they would do, but to be honest, I hadn't heard about this show until shortly before it came out. I don't know what was up with the marketing for this one. So many boring streaming shows they decide to push way too hard, but when they have a legitimately good and fun show, like, I barely heard anything about this until it came out, and then Amazon Prime decides to dump the whole season out in a day. They usually do the week-by-week releases, but not with this one. I don't know what was up with this release. I wish I'd heard about it a long time ago, so I'm definitely recommending it. It's a really fun show. Brief, non-spoilery plot synopsis. It's November 1st, 1988, so the day after Halloween, and we meet our main girl, Erin. Erin is 12 years old, and she's getting ready for her first day on her first job. She's going to be a paper girl. She's going to get up and get out on her bike well before anyone else is awake and enter into that sort of sleepy, empty world of the early morning. Really interesting setting there. But anyway, you know how I mentioned it was November 1st, the day after Halloween? Looks like the punks and hooligans are still up to mischief this early in the morning, and they're going to start to terrorize anyone who they meet on the street. So Erin meets up with other paper delivery girls, a sort of little group of friends there, and even though it will make the routes take way, way longer, they decide to stick together for just this one night and get their route done with sort of a sense of protection amongst the group. They meet a few other people that they think are more pranksters, because, you know, Halloween and stuff. However, they're totally wrong. These new people that they run into are actually time travelers from the future in a time war. Two factions from the future are having a battle throughout time for control of the timeline, and they've gotten inadvertently sucked into this. And in their first encounter with these people, they're going to accidentally get transported from 1988 all the way to 2019, and they're going to see how the world and how they have changed in the future. One of the first things that happens is they see a grown-up, older version of the main character, Erin, and they get to, you know, see how their life has changed in these two different time periods. It's a really interesting concept. Characters and also fun sci-fi stuff, and that's one thing I do want to emphasize. This show is a lot funner than a lot of other shows. I mean, for whatever reason, modern TV is so boring, so dry, and so serious, but this one, it's based on a comic. It has much more of a sense of life. The villains are pretty fun. There's fun future technology every now and then, and I won't spoil what happens, but episode 5 begins with a really big and crazy battle that I really am glad we were able to get halfway through the show's very first season. So it does stay fun, but it has a ton of really good character development moments as well. And it really does hinge on that question, what would your old self say to your new self? What would the 12-year-old version of you think about how your life has changed, how you are versus how they wanted you to be when they were younger, you know? So, like the main girl, Erin, I won't spoil all of them, but the main girl, Erin's the first one we see, and she's grown up and she's carved out a stable life for herself. She's not married and she doesn't have a great job, but she's getting by and she's trying to be stable. So the last thing she needs is her younger self going, I thought we'd have a big family. I thought we'd have a crazy cool job. This is it. And yeah, she doesn't want to hear that right now. There's other people, like one of them will find out they went to college for something they're completely uninterested in now, and also a few other things, but again, no major spoilers. One of them in that future is really happy, but the younger version can't believe their life choices. That was really important to us in the past. How could you just abandon it? And there's other cool things like with side characters too, you know? Like there's one guy in the past who was a huge jerk, but he grew up to be a really nice and successful guy who really turned his life around. That was fun, and one of the other girls finds out someone who they thought hated them was actually really there for them in the tough times. So a few really interesting moments and revelations, seeing how the world has changed. Oh, they tore that building down. Oh, cars are like this in the future. You know, stuff like that. And it really is cool, sort of a fish out of water element. And I really do like when the girls run into a version of themselves. It's not only them looking at the future, it's also the future looking back at them. It's a sort of two-way interaction, you know? Like you look at the Christmas Carol and Ebenezer Scrooge was invisible. What if he wasn't? What if he could talk to himself in the past? And that's really an interesting concept. Now, I will say a few things. The show actually has kind of two major acts to it. Like the first 4 episodes are definitely an act, and then the last 4 are their own act. And in the first act, it definitely focuses on Erin and Mac. And I was watching the show and I'm like, this is fun, but I wish KJ and Tiff would have more stuff to do and more character development. Well, that's where Act 2 is. So sadly, they don't get to use them terribly much. But then you get to the last 4 episodes and okay, now we're starting to see more with KJ and Tiff, you know, so we do have to kind of wait for that. And also, that being said, the first episode is a little bit slow. You know, you have to get all the girls together. You have to have them running around. You have to have them get to the time travel stuff. But when they finally start to time travel at the end of episode 1, it really heats up. It really moves fast. Seeing all these, you know, time travel good guys, bad guys. This one guy turns into a really interesting character, someone that the Resistance has left on a farm, and he has to just wait there cataloging everything, and they'll get to, you know, see him, and he'll be like, here's my book with all this information on the foldings. And I guess I should mention, you know, I did read a lot of the comic back when it was first coming out. That's probably the best way to watch an adaptation. If you just did a fresh read, all you're going to be able to do is overanalyze the differences. There are some differences, but it's not too bad, you know? Like Walking Dead changed from the comic way too much, and Lock and Key really put everything in a blender. Here, there are some changes, but they're really not too bad, and it keeps the spirit of the comic. The biggest differences are slowing down. The comic was very hit the ground running, very, very fast-paced, and almost whenever the show slows down for a character moment, you can tell that this is probably new stuff. But they do the characters really well, and you really get to know each one of them, which I really do like. They also did cut down on some of the more surreal dream moments, so sad that we couldn't get too many of those. There are a few, but because they cut them down, they do kind of stick out a little more than they should. And obviously, Max smokes a bunch in the comics, but you can't show a kid smoking on TV, I guess, which makes sense. They do allude to it, they just don't ever actually show it. But as far as the comics go, they really got all the girls looking exactly like how Cliff Chiang drew them, which is really, really good. All the hairstyles and the outfits, that weird hockey stick that KJ carries around, they got all the main characters down really good, which, you know, it really did bug me whenever you'd see an adaptation from the comic, and it's just the actor doing the role, but they don't look, you know, just, it's so simple as getting all the hairstyles right really does help, and the girls all look like they came right out of the comic. Plus, they kept the same logo, and I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but the logo from the comic is the same logo on the show, and I really do like that they kept that around, and I know it's just a little thing, but I really did appreciate that. So overall, I thought this show was pretty good. You know, you like the characters, the concept of a two-way conversation between yourself at two different points in your life. That's really interesting. But even besides all that, a fun story about a time travel war. Another difference between the comic and the show I forgot to mention is they explain the war sooner and more completely than in the comic, which kind of, you know, fed it to you much slower. But I guess it's a show and you gotta, you know, give people a place to come on. Yeah, shows and comics kind of work differently. You know, you do a comic, you only get 22 pages a month to tell your story. They inherently have to move faster, but then you do TV and each season's gonna be a couple hours long. Yeah, let's slow it down and do some character development, and I guess that's the biggest change, you know, going slower, being more character driven. Overall though, fun time travel adventures. I thought it was pretty cool. Definitely one of the better things I've seen out of Prime. And I really did like it. You know, I'm a fan of the comic, and I'm glad it got a good adaptation. So, hopefully we get a season 2 soon. I think it did peak at like number 7 or something on Netflix. No, Prime, sorry. I think it did peak at like number 7 or something, which is pretty good. So I'm hoping we get the second season before these girls grow up too much. That's kind of the thing. Look back at the first season of Stranger Things, how young those kids were. But I hope we get a cool season of this show pretty soon. I really did like the first one, and I really can't wait for more. So definitely do recommend this one. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my 2022 movies and TV playlist. On the TV side, I talked about Moon Knight, I talked about Shining Vale on Stars, and I also talked about the first episode of Tales of the Walking Dead. So if you want to see me talk about new movies and TV, the playlist will be right here. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.